Sorry, I'm a little off. Do we need to start with the pledge before we call the meeting to order? So yeah, for everyone's.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, it's 7 o'clock and I will call the meeting to order. Oh, we're muted, or somebody is.
We are unmuted.
And the video.
Thanks, good catch, Gloria.
Right.
Okay, it's 7:01. We just did the pledge. We'll call the meeting to order. Matt, should we attendance?
Trustee Edwards,
Here.
trustee Cranker,
Here.
trustee Harper. Here. Trustee Brianna. Here. George. Here. Mayor Pro Tem Barney.
Here.
Mayor Furman is not currently in attendance at this time. We have 6 out of 7 in attendance.
Thanks. Okay, are there any staff or board revisions to the agenda? I think we have one.
Two.
We do.
Audit extension tonight, so can we? Linda. Just in time for the finish line.
Never saw a group so excited.
That is really great news. So that'll be item 9D. We'll scratch that from the agenda. Any other revisions?
That's it at this time.
Okay. In that case, we will open for public comment. Tell us who you are, and you'll have 3 minutes to speak. We'll start with anybody in person. On Zoom. Okay. Seeing no.
Oh, there's.
Thank you.
Hi there, can y'all hear me?
Hi, Jake. We can't. Hi. Yes, we can. Please introduce yourself. You'll have 3 minutes. Hi,
Great.
Jake.
My name is Jake Kurzweil, resident 957 Reese Street. I just want to make a public comment that I did not, nor will I ever submit letters into people's mailboxes. That was not from me, nor was it from the Mountain Studies Institute. I believe if you review the public record, I have never stated that I want to make Shrine Hill a wetland. That was absurd. It did not come from me. If you see any writing from me, you should always expect a signature at the bottom. And I will continue to advocate that we should develop over 95% of Shrine Hill. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jake. Any other public comment? Okay, seeing none, we'll close public comment and move on to item 3, presentations and proclamations.
Oh, we got.
Oh, whoops. Nope, we want to go back for that. Okay, Janice, I think. Janice, if you unmute yourself, the floor is yours.
Actually, I think she has to accept being a panelist.
And accept being a panelist.
There you go.
Great.
Sorry, did not see that. I'm not sure I'm at the right meeting, but I received a letter about the Grow Dome by the senior center. And
You are at the right meeting, but can you just introduce yourself, please?
I apologize. Thanks, Sally. I'm Janice Sanders, and I have quite a bit of property surrounding where the proposed Grow Dome for the senior center would be. And I only just emailed Gloria, and I apologize for that. But I could not access the Google Drive that would show me what that would look like. And I had a couple of questions about it. Sorry. But I'm concerned about parking, increased traffic on our alley. And I was curious about what they might be growing and who might be growing. So I didn't know if anybody could answer that for me.
So Janice, typically during public comment, we don't respond to the comments, but we will have a public hearing for the Grow Dome and we'll include discussion at that time. And we can address your questions then.
Okay, so I'm too early then. Okay, I'm sorry, I wasted your time.
You're great. Nope, we appreciate your comment and it's part of the public record in our meeting as far as public comment goes. So thank you so much for participating.
And thank you so much. Glad to be here. Bye-bye.
I just want to note for the record with Clay, that was public comment regarding the Grow Dome. And so do we want to just enter that into the public hearing as comment as well? Or do we want Janice to stay on and restate her public statement?
Yeah, it needs to be done during the public hearing if it wants to be included as part of the record for the hearing.
Okay, so just to be clear, Janice, we heard your public comment as public comment at the beginning of our meeting. When we have public comment for the public hearing, if you want to enter that as part of the record, you'll want to come back on and participate at that time. Hopefully that was clear enough. Okay, any other public comment? Okay, it looks like we have Donna. If you want to just introduce yourself, you'll have 3 minutes to comment. Except being a panelist and then unmute yourself. Donna, if you would like to make a public comment this evening, you'll want to accept being panelist and unmute. And then we can receive your comment. Great, we see you. And now just unmute. And that would be like the little microphone down in the bottom left of your computer. If you click on that, you'll unmute. Maybe Matt, we can make I think you can request her to unmute. Oh, that was close. Okay, so Donna, we can see you as a panelist, but we can't hear you. It looks like your volume is muted. Is our chat up? I wonder if you could put a comment in the chat if you're having trouble. But I don't know if our chat is operational in these meetings. Okay. Does anyone know Donna? I don't know who this is. Okay. Donna, we can't currently hear you. So I think given the technical difficulty, if we see you pop up again with your hand raised, we can try your public comment maybe at a later time in the meeting, and we'll just make the exception for you to comment when we figure out when you figure out how to unmute and the technology on your end. Does that work for everybody? Okay. Oh, and do we have public comment? Great, we have another in-person public comment. Just please introduce yourself first.
My name is Edith Mary Agate, longtime resident here, almost 50 years. I just want to say that I'm in favor of saving Silverton's wetlands. That's all.
Thank you. Okay. Any additional public comment? Great, we'll be looking for you, Donna, and otherwise we will close public comment at this time and move on to item number 3, presentations and proclamations.
None at this time.
Okay. Item 4, new business. New business A is public hearing, use by special review application to allow a single-family residence in the Economic Development ED District for the property located at lots 9 through 10, block 63, applicant owner Patrick Dawson. Okay, so since this is a public hearing, we will just establish that this public hearing is now open. And we'll go to staff for the summary. Lucy.
And this will be Chris presenting
Chris.
From CPS.
Great.
You want to introduce the CPS team real quick?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, sorry.
We have everyone.
Okay, sorry. We have our CPS team, which is our planning department here with us today. So we have TJ, Chris and Sheila, who we kind of work closely with on all of our planning projects. And we're super excited that they got to be down here. And normally you see TJ or Chris on the screen, but they get to be in person. So this is pretty fun.
And if I may, just real quick, Sheila, how long have you been with us now? 2 weeks? Ish?
All right.
Very excited to have Sheila on the team. She'll be really helping and supporting, taking on that role that Katie was on a lot more too. So most of the team that you'll be seeing are Sheila and Chris. Welcome.
Thanks for coming. We like it. It's beautiful here.
Beautiful.
Okay, so before you all today is a use subject to review for a new single-family residence located on Mineral Street. The purpose of this review is single-family dwelling units are a use subject to review within the ED zoning district. ADU is also a part of this application. However, with the ordinance 2023-07, ADUs are considered accessory uses in all zoning districts. So that was not part of your guys' review today. An overview of the project, it does not currently have an address that would be created through the building application process. It is generally located north of 7th Street between Mineral Street and Cement Street. As was mentioned, the current applicant and owner is Patrick Dawson. It is located in the ED zoning district and there are no overlay districts for this property. All the required documents were submitted before the Plan Commission meeting they were submitted on June 29th and all fees were paid upon submittal. And the public notice was also posted on the town's website and the Silverton Standard and Minor on July 6th. On this slide, it shows you a elevation of the proposed single-family residence. The residence is 1,155 square feet, and there's a 646 square foot studio on the lower level, which will serve as an ADU. The proposed land use standards for this section require it's for a single-family dwelling unit, and it says use subject to review within the ED zoning district. And as previously mentioned, ADUs are a use by right in all zoning districts. The submittal application, sorry, I gotta move this out of the way. The submittal application material demonstrate that the proposed improvements meet all requirements for the zoning district. The application did not include a height of the proposed structure, and that's something we will review during the building permit submittal. Also, ADU standards will be reviewed during the building permit submittal phase. And the approval of the single-family residence does not constitute approval of the building permit for the ADU. We have not received any public comments regarding this application at the time the packet was compiled. The staff recommends. Jeez. The Zoom is always in my way. Staff recommendation is the proposed new construction appears to comply with all of the ED zoning district standards. And we recommend the Board of Trustees approve the application for a new single-family residence within the ED zoning districts located on lots 9 and 10, block 63 as presented. A summary of the July 18th Planning Commission is there were, during the regularly scheduled July 18th meeting, the Planning Commission moved to recommend the Board of Trustees approve the Dawson Single Family Residence as presented, and the motion carried 6-0. The Board of Trustees shall review this application and make one of the following determinations. They should approve as presented, approve with conditions, deny the application. The floor is now open for any discussion and questions.
All right, so, oh yeah, Lucy, did you want to add on?
I was just gonna say, and we don't have, I just texted Patrick, but he is not, I don't think he's here on Zoom or in person.
Okay, that's what I was gonna ask. So this would be our time to hear from the applicant, but if the applicant is unavailable, then we can move on to any public comment on the project. So if anyone is on Zoom or in person to comment on the Dawson project, we're now open for public comment. Okay, seeing none, we'll close public comment. And that will close the public hearing portion. And we will move on to discussion and deliberation as a board. Any discussion, board?
Looks pretty good to me. How's that?
Nice.
There's some other, some additional homes being built in that same area. Pretty much the same design. We have not had any complaints in the past, and I think this is a good project we should approve.
I agree with Jim. Kato.
Okay,
Planning Commission also approved it, you know. Yeah. It's got an ADU, which is great. More just volume, the better. So
okay. Would someone like to make a motion to approve as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please, Matt.
Trustee Edwards.
Yes.
Trustee Cranker.
Yes.
Trustee Hartley.
Yes.
Trustee Bierman.
yes.
Trustee George.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Barney.
Yes.
Motion carries 6 yeas, 1 absent.
Okay, thanks, Matt. So that concludes that public hearing. And now we'll move on to item 4B of new business, which is also a public hearing. So we'll use the same format, and this will be a public hearing discussion on a variance for the grow dome installation at the senior center.
So I'll kick this one off. The memo, unfortunately, for this agenda item didn't make it into the packet, so I'm going to verbally tell you the memo here. The senior center, who is funded through the Area for Aging, received a grant for 42-foot grow dome to be installed, and funding also to manage the dome for the next 2 years. This would service seniors, and they would be able to grow food in it. This dome is being proposed next to the current senior center, which sits on 17th Street in Cement. While the town has authority, and so this is in the street itself, just like the actual senior center. So while the town has authority over the use of its streets and right of ways, staff is treating this like a variance for the town board to approve. And we sent out notification letters to property owners near the proposed grow dome for comments and feedback. At the time this packet went out, we hadn't received any comments. And the funding opportunity for this project will expire soon. That's why this is unfortunately rushed, since staff has not had time to prioritize this until we were prompted with a deadline, which is very, very soon. So the project originally came in front of the Facilities, Parks and Rec Committee last year, and since then Bevan has taken it on to help with the variance and logistics of the actual build. And then if approved, I would recommend giving staff direction to implement a license agreement with the Area for Aging that would define the procedure if the building is abandoned or need to be taken down.
Okay, thanks, Gloria.
And we do
So
have
in
the
this case,
applicant
the
here.
town is the applicant, or do we get to hear from Carrie as the applicant?
Yes, so Carrie would be the applicant.
Okay. So at this time, Carrie, do you want to add anything to the discussion?
Just that we want to put it in to help feed the seniors. And then what food we can't use for the seniors. I've already arranged through the school to take what is too much and take it over to the school to teach the middle school, high school how to preserve food. And then use that monies, go to the farmer's market and sell it, and use that monies as a fundraiser for the senior center.
Great. Okay.
Can I
Think of any-
comment?
Yeah.
So this originally was planned for construction in October. And then, I'm not sure why, but they had a availability.
Bevan, would you be willing to come up to the microphone just to make sure everyone can hear?
Yeah, my name is Bevan Harris. I'm the building inspector and code enforcement for the town of Silverton and San Juan County. I've taken on helping expedite this, and I was informed by the Growing Spaces, the company that's building the Grow Dome for us in the senior center. They originally were planning on doing this October, and now it's come up availability to do it in August 21st, which is why the emphasis in trying to get this sped up. So I just want to make that clear that it was there are advantages to doing it now versus October as far as the foundation and our environment. So
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Bevan.
Yeah.
Okay, so now, if there's any public comment on this, we'll start with in-person and, yep, great, Janice, I see your hand, but we'll start with in-person comment and then we'll move to Zoom.
It's me again, Edith Mary Eggett. I think a grow dome at the senior center is a great idea.
Thank you. Okay, and I see Donna's hand is back up. Let's try this again. So Donna, if you can accept being promoted to panelist and then unmute yourself, the floor is yours.
Can you hear me now, Sally?
Oh, yes, great, perfect, thank you. Please introduce yourself.
Okay, I'm Donna Perino.
Oh, it's
I
Donna.
am,
Oh, hi.
yeah.
Sorry.
I own the property across the street from the senior center. And I am not in favor of a grow dome going in the middle of 17th Street. I think a grow dome is a great idea and I would be in favor of it, but not in the middle of the street.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Next up.
Ms. Sanders had her hand up. She goes.
I know, I saw that. Let's go to Lee Copenhagen and then we'll come back to Janice.
Oh, there's.
Okay, Lee, if you unmute yourself, please introduce yourself and then the floor is yours.
Okay, my name is Lee Copenhagen. I'm a new resident to Silverton. I'm here, some of you know, because I've got 2 grandkids here now with my wife. We're very happy to sort of help Carrie with this project. It's an important one, super important for seniors because it sounds like she's got a really good plan to put together to what to do with the food. And I think it's just an absolutely wonderful opportunity for the seniors to also have a place to grow. As we've noticed this last winter that we spent here, they're pretty severe, and in our struggling garden in our backyard, a grow dome would be definitely an asset. And this one is a very professionally built one. This outfit that does these is top notch. And if there was a demolition piece at the end, we'd still get probably our 50 grand out of the materials in these things because they're quite extensive and very pro. So I'm in support of it and I hope it goes through. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Janice, let's try again. All right. Yep, we see you.
This is Janice Sanders, and I have the property adjacent to the proposed grow dome. And I don't really mind a grow dome. I think it's a great thing, but we've never seen pictures of it. I am concerned about the traffic through our alley, which has really grown, and it's a little bit disturbing. I'm also concerned about where the parking. Is there a plan for parking? It's like we jump forward to a great project without thinking about the impact to the local area. A grow dome is a great idea. Carrie's got a great plan. Mr. Copenhagen's right. The product might be able to resell the scrap if it were torn down. But I'm really concerned about the people that live next to it and the quality of our residents, of our, peace and quiet. I really have noticed an extreme amount of traffic in my alley and a lot of extra parking with the senior center. And I have property adjacent to it and property that I live in that's adjacent to the property that's adjacent to it. And I'm just concerned about the impact without seeing what the future plans are for parking, the height of the grow dome, things like that. That's all, that's my public comment. And thank you for allowing me to share.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment on the grow dome? Okay, seeing none, we'll close public comment. And this concludes the public hearing on the grow dome, and we will now move to board discussion.
I can kick this off. I think this is something that we really have a lot of ability to make happen and feels a little bit like low hanging fruit. Haha, no pun intended. I think Carrie's worked on this for a really long time, so maybe it feels like a recent discussion for some folks, but this has been a really long time in the making, hence the funding is about to expire. And there have been a lot of conversations with town staff about where we could feasibly put this, how we could make this happen. When I work for public health and when we did our community health assessment, issues for seniors and supporting seniors, in particular, just around social connection and cohesion and aging in place, and also access to healthy foods came up a lot from community members and just from surveys of our status as a community. And so I think this is a really, again, low hanging fruit of something that we can do. I hear, Janice, your comments for sure. I think that we can find ways to work with that with parking through the senior center, but we already have that facility that we're using. And I think it makes a lot of sense to locate it near it and make it really accessible for seniors. We did the senior lunches this winter, spring, and they were just really successful for having people over at the senior center. And so I think it's a shame to not keep using that facility for what it's intended and to kind of, again, capitalize on this amazing funding that we've gotten. And if we kick the can down the road about talking about a new location of something, I just think this is an opportunity that we might not get again.
Thanks. Yeah, that was a good way to start. Other comments?
I get some clarity into the comment that was made about it being in the street, because I can understand the concern of having something in the street, but I thought the senior center was like, it's like in the street in quotes.
It's a platted street. It's not being used as a street.
I think that might be a little confusing in delivery.
Fair enough. So to clarify, that is not, the grow dome is not being proposed to be placed in a street that's being used as a street.
Thank you.
Yeah, good point. That would be quite disruptive.
Potentially a safety hazard.
I'm 100% in favor of more growing spaces in town, and Gary, we'll chat later about funding things. I got some ideas for you. And good connections between the youth and the seniors is always awesome.
I also think growing more food everywhere and anywhere we can in town is generally good, given that besides our lovely local grocery, we are an hour in both directions from produce.
So I do remember this vaguely because it has been a really long time that this has been stewing and brewing, and we the Parks and Recs and Facilities Committee took a look at this. I think some of the highlights of the plan were the high quality construction, I think just what Jordan said, the just overall idea of growing food in Silverton. The high quality construction, the grant provides 2 years funding for, I think it's called a caretaker of the Grow Dome, or a manager, someone who, I think that's a really awesome component of this opportunity. So it's not just going to be like physically constructed, but then it has funding to really be cared for and maintained and integrated into the senior life that's happening at the senior center currently. And we had a lot of, I think all of us were really supportive and in favor of the Grow Dome as we met about it on that committee. The one question that came up was its location, but more so as it relates to kind of the permanence of the senior center where it is currently, and the opportunity maybe going forward to construct something that provides just an improved facility for seniors. So looking at like putting the Grow Dome where we would potentially hope to have a new amazing municipal facility for seniors. But that is obviously nowhere like even in the planning phases or funding phases. And so I think that the conclusion at that committee meeting, and that we can see kind of what's before us tonight, is that currently the senior center is located where it's located. It's getting a lot of use, and it's a really awesome location for the seniors to not have to drive or travel further than they would to go to where they're already going. And so I think there are advantages there, and it doesn't really make any sense to try and relocate it somewhere that's separate from the senior center at this point in time. I don't know, Jordan, do you remember more of that discussion or?
Yeah, I think too, I was coming at it from more of a growing perspective, that there's more optimal places to grow things in town than that placement, but.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I think it also did come down to like, it's hard to get seniors from one place to another already sometimes. So having everything in one location was the best option.
But I'm hearing, yeah, that does create an impact on that neighborhood, and probably the senior center itself already currently is having an impact because it is really heavily used. It's an awesome opportunity. But yeah, probably just to acknowledge that that's something for us to try to mitigate as much as we can or plan for. I don't know, Jim or Tyler, what do you guys?
Okay. Yeah, mine's just more a question of procedure. I think it's a great idea. I think that we should grow as much food as possible, as Liv said. I'm just a little concerned that some of the some of the comments we got, that some of the neighbors aren't sure exactly what it's going to look like, the height, etc. And so if the memo wasn't available, maybe they didn't get all the information. And is that, since it's a public hearing,
Are we able to put up a diagram or?
Yeah, could we share a screen? There's a diagram. And then the other, Carrie, you can correct me if I'm wrong. I think at this stage, we're allowed to do this, but I think on the way to Durango, on the right-hand side of the road, as you're
going into Durango, there's one that's.
I'm sorry, as you're going into Durango, it's on the left. And I think that's a pretty close scale size for it. You have it?
Yeah.
Okay. It's the one. Yes.
Where's your packet?
So it's kind of, I think in the range of like where the glider rides used to be, or like the hangar area there.
There's also three in Pagosa. I don't know if they're the same
Okay.
size or not, but they're run.
I haven't seen
down.
those.
Do you have any renders? Because this just has a few drawings.
I mean, look.
Website has a link and there's.
And Evan and I have been over there and talked about where to place
Oh, yeah.
the road dome, and we were talking about the back north
I think I have some.
corner of it. And so there would be a place in the front of that lot where you could put parking, just like the.
Oh, I'm not online.
And we keep going in and out of having.
Thank you, Karen.
They have some on their website.
Are we able to post what or provide at least what's in our packet for the folks at home?
I'm online again.
You know,
You see.
You know, I thought we had a image of it in
there
our,
was a supplemental image.
somewhere.
Yeah, and we've got
A few more.
drawings of like space, but
Yeah, it doesn't show it in 3D.
And that's render in it in the materials.
Here, I can send it to
Ms.
you.
Terry,
Yes,
let me ask you a question. What do you anticipate the increased traffic flow to be?
I don't see it in much because
Cars,
we're gonna have a horticulturist taking care of it.
okay.
And then it would just be, you know, a few people going in and helping, maybe harvesting. You know, I don't see any more people being over there now than what we have at one time.
So not,
because it's sorry,
yeah, no,
because it's the seniors that are already there working, or they're already there enjoying the space, so they would go in and work.
Right.
Okay, thank you. I didn't mean to jump in, I'm sorry.
One of the comments I heard was just about the visual of what the dome would look like in a residential neighborhood. Has there been any thoughts to some sort of shrubbery, something to?
There's been talk about putting flower beds around it with other flower beds, picnic tables, and that kind of stuff.
I like it.
Nice.
You can go to shop down, start comparing greenhouses.
Sorry, I was talking, we were planning on putting like a fence around. Did you just say that?
What's that?
Like a shirt?
You mentioned like some planters.
Yeah,
Flowers.
and we were even talking about maybe a fence around as well. Just to shield it a little bit.
But not block too much of the.
I know, I was.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
We're not locking the plants and.
Yeah.
Okay, it sounds like a lot of us are very in favor of growing food in Silverton.
And
It's an opportunity to take advantage of funding that's available now to get this off the ground. And,
There's a picture of it.
oh, nice, okay.
Perfect.
And if you scroll down, they have the dimensions as well.
That's what 17th Street's gonna look like. Everyone should be really excited. And now it's gone.
Whoever did it, that's so typical, just typical. They should come by my yard.
yes, 16 feet high and 42 feet diameter.
Good.
Matt, can you just go back and linger on that image
you
for a
go.
minute? Great, yeah, so people can really get a good view of it. So that's the look.
Small park in the neighborhood with picnic tables.
Yeah, kind of like a pocket park.
Pocket park. That's outside, yeah.
Ice skating rink, I mean, fish pond.
And producing these photos, I hope this alleviates a lot of the nervousness that folks at home are having that may not have seen the photos before or have seen the packet. So everyone gets a good view of what this looks like. I think this is beautiful.
Me too. I think it's a really good opportunity and there's really solid funding for it. And if we have the capacity as a staff to take it on, which it sounds like we do, then, it's, I think we need to move forward. Would someone like to make a motion?
And I would ask
Oh, wait.
that that motion include a draft of a licensing agreement so we can define the terms.
Okay, I'll make a motion for approval for a variance for the Grow Dome installation at the senior center, which should include a licensing agreement between town and the area agency on aging. Is that sufficient?
Second.
Okay, roll call, please, Matt.
Trustee Edwards.
Yes.
Trustee Cranker.
Yes.
Trustee Harper.
Yes.
Trustee Bierman.
Yes.
Trustee George.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Barney.
Yes.
Motion passes 6 yeas, 1 absent.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for your hard work.
Thank you.
We will now move on to item number 5, approval of consent agenda items.
I would like to note that you do have sales tax in there. It did go down that what month is that for? In May, it went down. But that is because there was an overpayment in April. So if you look at the overall number, we're not as down as like it looks that month. So we also have an agreement with Engineer Mountain for our perimeter trail, as well as an agreement with San Juan Development Association for the shared housing position, which we are currently hiring for. We have 2 finalists right now, and hopefully by the end of this week, we'll have a decision.
I had 2 questions on the consent agenda. One, there were like a bunch of Bureau Fiber Networks payments.
For around $1,000.
Are we working? We're working. Are we not working now? No.
Yes, so on that one, in their transitioning from Forethought to Vero, they had a glitch on their side, so they weren't sending us invoices. So that's just the mistakes since February, I believe.
Okay, that was happening at my house in my accounting as well. Okay, good to know. And then I had a question on the meeting notes or the meeting minutes from last week or last meeting. Just wanted to put something out there so it wasn't confusing to folks. It is on page, sorry, now I had it up and now I can't find it. Okay, page 32. It says as one of the bullet points, Trustee George and Mayor Pro Tem Barney spoke about the 1 to 5-star rating system proposed in the ordinance. I just wanted to note for the record that there was no 1 to 5-star rating system proposed in the ordinance. We were talking about the ordinance and we're talking about a rating system.
Yeah.
And there
There were 2. Yeah, it was 2.
and it's not something we're proposing.
No.
Yeah. Thanks for pulling it up.
Go ahead and make that correction.
Thanks, Matt.
Any other comments on the consent agenda? Would someone like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda with the corrections.
I'll second.
Roll call, Matt?
Trustee Edwards.
Yes.
Trustee Cranker.
Yes.
Trustee Harper.
Yes.
Trustee Bierman.
Yes.
Trustee George.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Barney.
Yes.
Motion passes 6 yeas, 1 absent.
Okay, thanks. All right, we'll move on to item number 6, staff reports.
All right, so the town, the county, and SMPA have drafted an application for a prize in the amount of $100,000. We received that prize, so it's a prize, not a grant, because we don't have to put anything down for it. This prize is for a resiliency plan and plan out for a microgrid, and to join the region's climate initiative and greenhouse gas tracking. More information on that will be coming soon and how this will look moving forward. We want to meet with the trustees as well as the community as we move forward on these initiatives. And then it's kind of cool. We are one of 67 winners nationwide. So there were over 1,000 teams that applied for this, and We got our first 100,000. What this does is it sets us up to apply for phase 2 funding for the implementation of the plans. Simultaneously, SMP has just submitted a grant for a microgrid and solar system in the amount of 5 million for the town of Silverton. So we're crossing our fingers on that one as well. And I'll be scheduling a meeting in the coming months to talk about kind of some of our ideas moving forward. And this is all stemming from power outages and creating more resiliency here in Silverton. So excited to be working with SMPA. Terry has been just incredible to work with. And just the collaboration that we have, the team that we've put together is pretty efficient and fun. So also in there, you'll note in Todd's staff report, the old 100 donated rocks that will be used for Columbine Park landscaping. So we really want to thank them for that. It's over there now, and it's going to be ready by our opening on September 9th. So we are very excited for that. And then the stairs to upstairs are going in this week. So that's really exciting as well, because it's pretty much all finished up there. We just need stairs. And then I'm planning a master plan update, kind of part of the citizen engagement budgeting kickoff, probably around August 23rd or 24th. I was trying to get it later in September, but August seems to be the time where everyone's available, oddly. So that would include CPS here. It would include our wastewater treatment plant team that's helping us out, as well as community builders. So kind of a big hurrah on updates on the master plan, and then how we are going to be budgeting for that. And then I would like to schedule a work session for August 28th or earlier to assign boards and committees, following up on the trustee retreat. So I'll be reaching out to you all for that. Any other questions on the staff reports?
Working hard. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to item number 7, committee reports. We are starting this one with
Finance.
thank you.
We had a very brief finance committee meeting. It was about 26 minutes. We discussed May actuals, sales tax, the grant update, audit update, and the Columbine Park construction financing update with Todd. And it was real brief, really concise, and it was perfect. So there you go.
Nice.
Yep.
Anything else, Dana?
Jim was our sole representative, so it was a
Okay.
one-man show. Yes.
Thanks for that.
Thank you for.
Or Tyler, you're on that committee too.
And he was the,
No, you were a one-man show.
Yeah.
Okay, nice work. Way to make it happen. You want to just carry on into planning committee?
Well, I can't, I grabbed the wrong notepad, so I don't have my detailed notes, but we reviewed the Dawson residents submittal that was approved unanimously. We reviewed the town of Silverton land use code rewrite. That was approved unanimously. The improvement permit sketch plan for the vacation rental application. That ran into a snag due to the location of where it's at on the side of Kendall. And they decided, should say we decided to table that for more information to be located. The land use permit application for the Bonanza Boy LLC. We discussed that. It's kind of an exciting project, not kind of, it is an exciting project. And more information will be coming in about that. This was just preliminary discussions. Did I get that correct?
Yeah, he had a deadline on the voluntary mine cleanup project, and so he wanted to kind of give us like it was like the trailer version, the trailer of his project, and make sure, sort of keep everyone in the loop so that as he proceeds with this really costly mine cleanup project, it's everyone kind of knows what's coming next. Okay, and then finally, the Silverton Area Chamber of Commerce.
Okay, we got some highlights in some of the grants that had been worked on with the chamber as well. I think a big thing to call out is the Colorado Tourism Office has kind of highlighted our region in addition to Durango for kind of an area that's subject to a lot of use and sometimes a little wear and tear. And so trying to have good public education and visitor campaigns to really focus on sustainable tourism and preserving our certain areas. And so we would probably get some free resources and mentorship for the chamber and some good messaging and materials, you know, kind of like what we've had before with San Juan Mountain Association and partnering with Visit Durango, but just kind of making sure that we have stuff to help educate folks who really are coming from different areas that may not be as aware of the fragility of some of the areas that we have in town. So it's kind of exciting that we get some funding for that. We talked a little bit about the visitor center, so continuing to see if we could get it mowed. And I know the staff put up the no camping sign, so we can really try to keep that as a space where folks can come and get information, but they're not staying overnight over there. We have lots of great campgrounds in town where they could stay in areas out in the backcountry. I think one thing we talked about was sort of the increase in visitors or the continued seeing visitors in town. I know the train is having a really great year and we're seeing a lot of those visitors come through our doors, but also kind of a downward trend in the area around hotel bookings. So Durango as well, just kind of whole area in hotel bookings going down. And we didn't have the data to corroborate, is that because more vacation rentals are being rented or what? But there was some comment from some of Deanne's meetings at different chamber groups that some of it might be pricing and just, you know, as we've kind of seen folks being sensitive to a lot of the inflationary pressures that we've seen. So that was kind of an interesting thing to note for town and the region as a whole. And yeah, celebrated single track broke ground. And I think that was it. Did I miss anything? Oh, the signage, the kiosk got updated. So that's one little step in our signage in town looking a little better. So we had a sign group from Montrose that came up. They actually hung up our N again back on our billboard that had sadly fallen down. We're not Silver Toe, we're Silverton. And so they hung that back up for us. And then if you've seen the nice kiosk information signs, they put those up and produced them for us. And so we're actually talking to them about potentially having them bid for the ideas of our larger signage entrances of town. So it's exciting to keep that conversation going and actually have some information for locals and visitors alike.
And hopefully they're going to give us like a price or a bid for a monument, an entrance monument.
Yeah.
That's our fingers crossed.
Nice.
And we did have a Region 9 meeting as well. I wasn't able to attend, but
Yeah, I can give an update. So Region 9, we hosted them here. So this includes representatives from all over Region 9. Shocking. And you have town representatives, county representatives. It was really educational experience for me. It was really interesting. Willie chairs that. And just talked a lot about the initiatives that are happening around, the resources that are available for businesses and nonprofits, gave a recap of the philanthropy days that had happened. So I just think it's really neat to see all these different groups come together. And it was a very long meeting. We were here from 10 to 3. But I just think seeing how different folks are working outside of our community, but also very much connected to our community to bring in grants. And, you know, for example, I know folks talk a lot about the infrastructure spending that's happening at the federal level. Well, a group like Region 9 is able to help smaller communities like ours access some of that funding, right? Because if we can pool things together in a more regional approach, we sometimes can leverage our strengths. We can also kind of make a better ask and show that we're working in partnership. So it just was a reminder to me of how important it is for San Juan County to have a seat at those tables because we are able to advocate for our needs. And we really have great representation. Again, as Willie chairing it, Gloria or I attend, and then we also have Alex Lannis as a member at large. So for a community like ours, we have pretty great representation. So just a reminder for the community that there are folks in your town that are representing you outside of your town for things that you care about. And they were very excited. They thought it was very nice and cool here, even though it felt like it was 85. They were very happy coming from all of their respective communities.
Refugees.
Yes.
That was a great update. Thanks, Dana. Okay, I think that's it for committee reports. We'll move on to number 8, trustee reports. Trustees.
We had our trustee retreat.
Yeah,
There you go.
that's actually an item, I think. Next. But should we? Well, I had just a couple of things. This is really little, but guys, I signed up for an interview with Emily from the wastewater. Actually, it's the Water Alliance, but it's regarding our wastewater project that's coming up. And she scheduled for 30 minutes. It was 30 minutes, really efficient. She asks 5 great questions. It was super thoughtful and productive, I hope, for her. But I think we got an email about signing up for those. So I did it and it was very fun. Highly recommend. And then just a couple things that I've been hearing some input on and just thinking a little bit about, and this isn't totally the right spot for it, but I want to just like bookmark it to come back to maybe in Parks and Rec or something like that. But I'm wondering if, as we're headed into budget season, we can think about bike racks and purchasing some bike racks for different locations around town, like Memorial Park, the Center, Harmony Park. I don't know. I think it would be just a great visual to remind everyone that you can ride your bike, and also really it's really hard to lock your bike if we are moving in that direction and feeling like we need to lock our bikes. There aren't a lot of things to lock our bikes to. So that was one thought I had for that. And then the other one I wanted to bring up is, I don't know if this is possible to put, or if there's a legal issue of putting crosswalks to Memorial Park. So I think there's a lot of kid migration that happens around Green Street and then over on kind of the county road too. So kids who are living along the Cement Street corridor, as they cross like the road to the dump and then Green Street, they have 2 pretty busy roads to navigate. So I don't know what it takes to put crosswalks on paved streets, but those are really challenging places for kids to cross. Maybe adults too. They're just busy places.
Yeah, I would venture a guess that
Don't
my
know.
intersection it's really dangerous. It's insane. I see almost a car crash a day there. So
Yeah, and then you add in a couple of little bikes and it's just kind of a mess. And I know that the town just went through and kind of repainted all those. I actually saw the guys out doing it, but in the next round, maybe we can add it. I don't know, just throwing it out there. That's it for me. Okay. Trustee retreat. We had one.
It's fun.
It was fun.
I think there's a lot of cohesion across the board.
Nice.
I think Gloria, you reminded us, how many meetings do we have left with this board?
17.
17. So we have 17 meetings left with this board. 16.
Who's counting?
Plus a few work sessions, special meetings. Yeah, so just talking really about vision. What was interesting is Gloria had us all write about what our dream of this town would be in like 10 years. And we just had a lot of echoed similarities. So that was kind of interesting. I'd be curious to ask folks out in the public, your dream of this town in 10 years. A lot of that's in the master plan, but I think it was just helpful to get it kind of out of our brains and thinking loftily.
yeah, and just looking at some of the accomplishments of the past year. And a huge kudos to staff, especially because we can give direction, but they're the ones that get it done. And just going through that list of all the things that that we've accomplished and staff has made happen, I was astounded. So it was really cool to see that.
I think too, we had an outsider's perspective with Patrick Rondinelli from URA, and he's kind of observed our community from afar for a long time and been connected in various ways. And so just to hear his encouragement and perspective on what staff and board have been able to do during this time, I think was a good encouragement and also a reminder of there's still a lot more work to do as we work to implement that master plan. So we're moving quickly and swiftly, and there's a lot in front of us. So.
Jordan?
Okay, I have anything to add.
All right, well, let's move on to number 9, continued business. 9A is emergency ordinance 2023-09, an emergency ordinance of the town of Silverton, Colorado, amending chapter 13 municipal utilities, chapter 16 zoning, and chapter 17 subdivisions of the Silverton Municipal Code addressing wetlands definition.
All right, so I'm going to address both the ordinances as I talk through this since they're so connected, but following the direction from the July 10th meeting, staff is presenting the trustees with 2 emergency ordinances. So the 2023-09 is adding a definition of a wetlands to the code. This definition was proposed in the draft ordinance that was presented at the July 10th meeting. And then the other ordinance is 2023-10, and that's on page 20 or 222 220 of the packet, just in case you're getting lost in there. And that one is a pause on applications that meet the definition of the wetland and as defined in 2023-09. So this one was difficult to draft because we debated on including the 25-foot setback standard for wetland preservation or not. So that could be something that we could discuss tonight. And then this pause would commence immediately following the passage of the ordinance and would last for 6 months. The applications affected are outlined in the memo, and that is if they are determined to have a defined wetland on their property according to that definition. So during the pause, staff is proposing to go out for RFP to hire a wetlands expert to help identify the town's non-jurisdictional wetlands, to give the trustees a scope and scale for making decisions on if we want to regulate non-jurisdictional wetlands. So both ordinances at the request of the board are emergency. So they are requiring a 3/4 of the entire board or 6 affirmative votes to pass.
Okay, as we discuss this, do we need to, thanks, Gloria, that was a good update on where we are. As we discuss them, do we need to keep them separate or?
I mean, you can start with the definition right now, and then you can move on to the other one. I would say that the second one is contingent on if the definition is adopted or not.
Okay, so let's start with the definition.
Yeah, I think it's incredibly important to get this definition in place. I've said that in previous meetings. And I just wanted to mention, been getting a lot of feedback on this, and almost all of the feedback, everybody says that we should protect wetlands. A lot of it is we can't decide how we define them. So that's what we need to do. We need to define them. And I know that a lot of people are worried that, the definition is just, there's a bunch of willows or there is, but that's why I think that it's important that we adopt this regional supplement, because it addresses our area specifically, rather than just being a general wetlands term for the entire United States. It does address, the Rocky Mountains, and to some folks that think that they're worried that, it may stop them from building on their land. It's actually, I think in some cases, it may do the opposite, and or not the opposite, but it will prove that you are allowed to build on your land. I was reading it again because I'm a glutton for punishment, but I just wanted to just read this quote from it. You can't use a single instance of observed hydrological indicators as stated in the regional supplement. And the quote is, some indicators may be present on non-wetland sites immediately after a heavy rain or during periods of unusually high precipitation, river stages, runoff, or snowmelt. Therefore, it is important to consider weather conditions prior to the site visit to minimize both false positive and false negative wetland hydrology decisions. So after a heavy rain, if we adopt a more vague wetlands definition, we might go over there and be like, oh, this is clearly a wetlands, when it's not, because it doesn't have the historical data to back up the fact that it's a wetland. So this is gonna, I think it's very comprehensive. It's not, it doesn't determine a wetlands based on any just one thing. There's three main factors, and they go into the sub factors. And then for anybody that has any questions about how it's determined, on the page 217 of our packet, I don't know what page it was on the actual supplement, but it has a determination data form. So, I mean, it goes over exactly what you would have to have on a property in order for it to be determined wetlands. And they make it very clear, and it's not just one thing, it's a higher bar than, you know, a stand of willows or some standing water. So I think, yeah, this is, I think it's important that we get a clear definition of what wetlands are. And I think that this is the right document to use and the right route.
Taylor, this might sound crazy, but I'm just wondering if for the public record, you would be willing to read the definition that's proposed tonight. I mean, I'm happy to do it too, but just so everyone's clear, like exactly what it says. It's on 64.
Wetland, those areas that are inundated or saturated by surface or groundwater at a frequency and duration sufficient to support, and that under normal circumstances do support prevalence of vegetation typically adapted for life in saturated soil conditions. Common wetlands in and around Silverton include wet meadows, shallow marshes, willow stands, wet forested areas associated with high groundwater or snowmelt peatlands, and other areas along water courses or where groundwater is near the ground surface. The procedures used to identify wetlands are those described in the regional supplement to the Corps of Engineers Wetland Delineation Manual, Western Mountains, Valleys, and Coast Region of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers 2010. All wetlands identified using this methodology are regulated by the town, regardless of whether they are regulated by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers under Section 404 of the Clean Water Act.
Thank you. Other discussion on the definition?
Yeah, to me, it's summed up in the last sentence. All wetlands identified. What was the purpose? We didn't have anything on the books. What was the reason? We had property owners, we had the town of Silverton, staff, trustees, not having true guidance. This provides true guidance for the property owners, for the trustees, not just now, but for years to come, and also for staff for years to come. This is the language that we've needed on the books.
I agree. I think this is pretty in line with what we discussed at the last meeting, and I'm happy to see it take form.
I think specifically to note, it references the regional supplement to the Corps of Engineers Wetland Delineation Manual, Western Mountains, Valleys, and Coast Region. And that manual in its entirety is included in our packet. It's substantial and detailed. And I was wondering, is it typical? I was going to ask CPS or Lucy, is it typical for towns to include that in their definition?
You mean the actual document itself?
The reference to the manual.
Yes, it's, well, I guess I wouldn't really say that. What's happened with wetlands in the last 6 months, all the way up to the federal Supreme Court, it's kind of thrown the definition on its head.
Mm-hmm.
But what we've done here is refer to a technical guide
Mm-hmm.
that is essentially the best practice. And so referring out to the third party rather than coming up with your own definition is probably always the best bet.
Nice.
So yes, I think that's moving forward. That's what we're recommending. All clients kind of do.
Yeah.
So can we talk process just a little bit? So if, especially since we have our lovely planning department here in person, it's great to see your faces. So if an application came before us for an empty lot on Green Street, how does this get applied? How does the lens get applied? Just kind of for the public's purpose, if this definition is adopted, and I'm not talking necessarily about the next ordinance with potential pause, but just saying, making the determination, yes, check, or no, X wetlands as we've defined them.
Yeah, so what would happen is someone would inquire that they wanted to build either with Bevan or I. And we would kind of go through our checklist that we go through with every one that wants to build or develop in town. And that includes our overlay districts, as well as the Colorado wetland inventory map. And so we would look at that if they were in close proximity or identified in that map. We would kind of put a pause before they get a building permit and kind of talk as staff as CPS and kind of make a plan from there. If it was pretty evident that wetlands were on the property, that's when this would kick in. And we would ask them to either get a letter from an engineer or wetland expert saying that there are no wetlands on the property, or a delineation showing the wetlands on the property. Do you have anything to add to that?
No, I don't think so. I think that was pretty good. And then, but the idea is, right, just looking at the definition itself, the onus is on an applicant to say either they do or do not have them there. And then it would be conferred by staff.
But it doesn't necessarily mean that every application that comes before us, you are going to send them out for expert
Correct.
determination or delineation or review.
Correct. And I think, I don't remember if I mentioned this at this body last time or not, but the typical building and development construction process is you have to have a soils report in order to design your foundation. That soils report is going to be the thing that defines that.
Yeah.
Right.
So you're doing that anyway.
Correct.
As a builder.
Yep.
And in this case, you would have it would have double duty. It would be serving as your soils report for building your foundation, and that same exact report, it serves as your indication of wetlands present or not.
I'll say that it could. Now, again.
Is that a staff decision?
Well, and that's where, hopefully not. Hopefully not. Hopefully you have a soils report that the structural engineer who's designing foundation says, oh, shoot, that's wetlands. And then they, through that process, go through and get a survey and delineation of wetlands. Right? Now, say that doesn't happen and it comes to staff as part of the building permit with hopefully a soils report that talks about the design. Do you receive those currently? So we would have a soils report with design criteria. Now that's where it gets, that's supporting the design of the foundation. That's where it gets a little bit more technical, but there's enough, I think, common language in there in the review to say, this says it's hydraulic soils. Say, let's question it, right? And so that's where it might get a little bit iffy if there becomes some contention between that. But frankly, I don't necessarily see that being an issue here. Yeah.
That would be a conversation that the developer has with staff.
Correct.
Yeah. And then a potential expert. Like basically the point to the community is that this does not mean that all of a sudden all developable properties in town are determined a wetland until proven otherwise. That's not necessarily the way it is.
Yes.
Correct.
You're not proven guilty until you're proven
there is some, I can be reading that in that light. So I'm grateful for the clarification.
If I may, thank you, Sheila. So the beauty of chat is like, hey, shouldn't you add as amended at the end Since you're referencing a document that may or may not be amended over time.
Oh, for
So
that.
we would suggest that if you do choose to approve with the condition to add as amended to
the manual.
all 3 locations, yeah.
Mhm.
So that it will be updated as that. It'll stay relevant as that updates. Because you sure don't want to have that 300-page document.
Yeah.
See,
Yeah.
no matter how many times you look at it, it's always good to have another set of eyes. So he's already proving that valuable.
Yeah, I just think easing that fear for folks in town, you know, we've definitely gotten comments that like, if I want to go build a shed in my backyard, well, you don't always even need a permit for different items like that. But if I want to build an ADU or do some construction, it's just assumed that I'm on a wetland until I prove it otherwise. And it sounds like that's not, there's a process that's gone through, and it's not that all parts of town are assumed to be wetland soils.
Correct.
In terms of the definition.
Yeah, in terms of definition.
Okay, would someone like to make a motion to approve the definition and include the language regarding the amendments to the Army Corps of Engineers manual?
Yeah, I would like to make a motion to, let me make sure I get the right one. A motion to adopt emergency ordinance 2023-09, an emergency ordinance of the town of Silverton, Colorado, amending chapter 13 municipal utilities chapter, there's a 16 zoning, and chapter 17 subdivisions of the Silverton Municipal Code addressing wetlands definition.
Second.
Thanks. Roll call, please.
Trustee Edwards,
Yes.
trustee Grinker,
Yes.
trustee Harper,
Yes.
trustee Bierman,
Yes.
trustee George,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Barney.
Yes.
Motion passes.
This does include that language.
Yes, and with the as amended to all.
Do we need to redo that?
Might as well, just for clarity's sake.
I think we should redo that. Sorry, guys. I didn't catch it. Good catch, Jim.
No worries. I would like to make a motion to adopt emergency ordinance 2023-09, an emergency ordinance of the town of Silverton, Colorado, amending chapter 13 municipal utilities, chapter 16 zoning, and chapter 17 subdivisions of the Silverton Municipal Code addressing wetland definition with the amendments as suggested.
Second.
Trustee Edwards,
Yes.
trustee Grinker,
Yes.
trustee Harper,
Yes.
trustee Bierman,
Yes.
trustee George,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Barney.
Yes.
Motion passes 6 yeas, 1 absent.
Sorry, you guys.
Thank you. Yeah, good catch. Okay, since that passed, we will now discuss this 9B, emergency ordinance 2023-10. An emergency ordinance of the town of Silverton imposing a temporary suspension on accepting construction permit applications in those areas defined as wetlands within Silverton town limits. So Gloria, when you kicked this off, you included that second ordinance in your summary. Is there anything else you or the CPS team wants to add?
No, we're happy to answer any questions on it. Do you have anything to add to that one?
I don't think so at the moment. Happy to answer any questions though.
How many applications does this affect that are already in the pipe?
We have no applications currently in the application phase.
We do have one that this might impact.
Pending.
Yes, they're not in the application phase yet.
Correct. Yeah, so one that we're aware of, I think.
Something that, yeah,
Could wait.
but they're not there yet.
Correct. If something was already in the queue, it wouldn't be affected by this.
Correct. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, this is, they're not.
But we haven't had a slew of quick, let's hurry up and get this done before the town does.
Correct. Yeah.
And to reiterate to the folks here and those at home, this is temporary, correct?
6 months.
Thank you.
Expiring on January 31st.
2024.
Further discussion.
I feel like we talked a lot last time about this, before we gave the motion to staff to bring this to us. So I'm pretty happy with how it looks, and I don't have any questions personally, but I think this is pretty in line with what we discussed at the last meeting. And for those watching who did not catch the last meeting, it was a robust discussion. Watch it on YouTube.
Clayton, I think I have a question for you regarding the ordinance, section 5, page 221 of our packet. It talks about exclusion from temporary suspension. It says this ordinance and the temporary suspension imposed by this ordinance shall not apply to any use that is a lawfully recognized vested property right pursuant to common Colorado law, pursuant to a final approved application for vested rights, or pursuant to an annexation, development, or other agreement approved by the town. Can you give any clarity there for us and the public about what is a lawfully recognized vested property right? So we have some understanding when we're talking about what we're actually causing.
Right, so if there's a particular property that would be affected by this that already has been gone through application and permitted, that right has vested in that owner, and you cannot change the status of that property post vesting. So if someone's already, for example, applied and received a permit that this would affect, then you can't retroactively tell them they can't withdraw that permit because that right is vested.
Great, thank you. So, but we have the municipal authority to not accept applications in this time period that may be affected by this definition.
Right. The permit application process is how a property owner perfects or perfects their rights in their property, i.e. when that particular right vests. So you have the right to stop somebody from applying, but you don't have the right to stop somebody who's already applied and been permitted. Did that answer your question, Trustee Cranker?
Yep, that's great. Thank you. I think I'd be a little curious to hear from staff and Clayton, our attorney, and from CPS, and just thinking about, the effect of a pause. I still don't take this lightly. I recognize that it's only 6 months, but it's not extremely likely that it will affect a significant amount of applications. I don't mean to demean any applicant that is considering submitting something, but I think because of our building season, because of where we are already, this is probably a pause like this is probably not going to have affect a significant number of people in this point in the season. But I'm just curious a little bit from your perspectives and working with other communities, seeing how other communities have handled issues like this or pauses, and any kind of unintended consequences we're not anticipating either for staff, right? Like, are we going to have this pause with the intent to free up staff, and then all of a sudden staff is overwhelmed by other issues related to a pause like this that come up? And so just a little curious if you have any lens that you can share with us from your experience.
I can start with that one. So any kind of pause that we put into place, then we will need to prioritize that initiative. So that would be, within those 6 months, we would go out for an RFP to find an expert to be able to evaluate our wetlands here and present that to you all in a form of like maybe a work session. Now, we want to get that expert potentially before the snow falls, realizing that that's an issue here. So hopefully before October, and then have some kind of a work session with you all November, December. It doesn't necessarily say that we'll have a fix by then. I probably wouldn't say that we would at that time, because you guys would still be gathering that information and have a more robust knowledge of the scope and scale of what we're dealing with in the town of Silverton. And so that would be the goal of that pause is to really give time, and potentially no other applications would come in that would have a wetland on it, and you guys have to make that decision to either develop using our current codes. That being said, we would prioritize that over other projects because we are under the gun and would like to make sure that, you know, we use our time in that pause as efficiently as possible. But noting that other projects might not get priority.
I'll go ahead and jump in, and I have to admit, if you asked me this 2 years ago, I had a different opinion. I remember working in the Front Range, and I was birthed back in the, I think, early 2000s, put a moratorium on, and it stifled development there for about 20 years. So I know that's part of the big concern. And since then, we're currently working in 1, 2, 3, 4 communities that have active moratoriums. Actually, I shouldn't say that, 3, because Ridgeway just lifted theirs the middle of this past month to do the exact same thing. So what you're seeing, what has happened in the post-COVID world, I know this didn't give Gloria too much solace this afternoon when I said it, but you're not alone. This impact is kind of across the board. This huge influx of applications. Everyone's saying, whoa, we're not ready for that. So those moratoriums, whether it's specific or general, and we're running across the board in all of that, in the clients that we were working with, they need, like, you know what, it's coming in too fast. We don't have the resources to address the community needs and the impacts that we may or may not know, right? We just don't understand it. We need to pause it, understand it, research it, learn it, get the rules and regulations in place. Once those, shoot, I was ready in Ridgeway. They're like, all right, 10, 15 applications are coming in. We've gotten 1 that was actually already in process. I think that the development community too is understanding it. So it's not like I wouldn't necessarily foresee like a backlog of these. This conversation has been going on for long enough where if somebody wanted to come in, they would. So that's on the moratorium side.
We're calling it a pause.
Sorry, the pause on development side.
Let's call it what it is.
Man, I was doing so good for so long.
Yeah, you did great.
It's okay.
The other part
feedback.
though, and that's I think maybe even more practical, is anyone who's looking to construct next year should have already had their plans in. Right? If you don't have your plans in by now, you've missed next construction season, practically speaking. So in essence, what we're doing is saying, all right, we're gonna officially say, hold off, come in January, and now let's prepare for the next construction season. So from a construction standpoint, I don't know that we're losing any time based on what we currently have.
So what are the lessons from Berthoud? I mean, if you're seeing a lot of communities implement this now, and we've also seen instances where it does have significant repercussions.
Yes, I would say in a weak economy, you probably don't want to. In a strong economy that we have right now, it's even, I guess you don't really want to, sorry. I guess you don't really, there's a lot going on right now with the economy, right? But I mean, it's not quite the same. That those types of pauses are not, I frankly think COVID and that 2-year pause on life, essentially. Let people identify, what's important in the rural communities that we all love and live and work in are what people want. So they're going to come now, right? So I don't think it's going to stop that economic generator that we're afraid that it would. The way that it would in 2000, 2000, they opened back up in 2002, right? And heading into a recession and everything that was going on in the Front Range too. So there was a lot of larger effects going on there too.
Clayton, I don't know if you have any perspective from the legal side, just what this has tended to mean for town staff from what you've seen.
Yeah, I don't really know how to answer that. From a legal perspective, it seems this would simplify matters, at least having a working definition of wetland, and then possibly pausing projects that would be affected by that definition. I don't think it's any more, it's hard to say. Legally, I can tell you that you have the authority to do it, and that the idea behind the temporary suspension is to get the town's ducks in a row, so to speak, regarding wetlands. It's tough to answer that because every community and every suspension of an application type or process is nuanced to that community and to how it impacts that community depending on how many application it affects, and that's yet to be seen. Right now, I can say that there is no, that I'm aware of, any application in process that would be affected by this. So I don't see significant impact. I don't see any negative legal ramifications.
Thank you.
Well, I kind of want to go back to what Liv said, because I totally agree. This is the exact direction that we sent staff in the last meeting. And since the last meeting, I've just had some time to kind of reflect and analyze how we move forward on the wetlands issue. I think it's been one that has really stalled us out. We've spent oh my gosh, the lightning out there is amazing. I hope people are looking out the window right now. It's been something that we've been working on and looking at and re-looking at for so many months. And something that Patrick Rondinelli said in our retreat has stuck with me, which was, we need to make decisions. We're here to see information, analyze it, discuss it, and then decide and continue to prioritize the work of government. And I think this issue it's tricky because we all really care about it. And we want to do the best we can. We hear people's concerns in the community and care for the earth. And I honor those concerns and share them. And however, here we are again in another meeting talking about the same issue. And what I hear is that putting a moratorium on building on property that meets the definition of a wetland continues to really prioritize this subject for us as a town and a town government. And we can opt into that. I really have some concerns that it's not totally the best thing for the community, because we're headed into a code rewrite that's months away. And I think the good news is that a moratorium doesn't necessarily affect. We're not seeing a lot of applications. And so again, to maybe the one or two people that wanted to kind of get theirs in or not, you know, that might seem significant, but I think the good news is a moratorium doesn't sound like it has a really horrible negative effect on just kind of to what you were saying, TJ. I think on the flip side of that, it doesn't feel like an emergency to me. And the idea that we're taking, this is a really drastic reaction. I mean, this is a significant decision for us to make as a board. And I've lived in Silverton for long enough to know that a strong economy has not been a sure thing forever. And it is the life here in Silverton is, it's not certain, and it feels really certain right now. It feels really robust and I mean, it's crazy because we've had years, I think, with like 3 building permits total in the entire year, and we're looking at like, I don't even know how many, 20 or something. So that's really different. But I guess I'm having a hard time with the emergency moratorium on building because I just don't feel the emergency. I feel the emergency for wetlands. I feel like we need to do something to protect them. And I know that we are rewriting our code in the next year to 18 months. And if we can, you know, get there through that process, I guess I'm not taking lightly the significance that a moratorium means to Silverton. It's a really small town, and it's been very vulnerable to setbacks in the past. And we've had those brought up to us over and over at many meetings regarding fires and winter storms. And, you know, I'm not sure we're totally out of the weeds on that. I'm not saying that we can't pause development and not recover from it, but I just want to raise the concern that we're still a really small town. And at one time, this town had a couple thousand people living here, and we had way more kids in our school. And I know that I've ventured far out of the wetlands at this point, but I think these things are sort of linked in our long-term vision. And so that's sort of my wordy response is like, I'm sort of walking myself back from the direction that I supported in our last meeting that agreed with our council members. We agreed, I think, and to head this direction. And while I really picked that ordinance part, I'm sorry, in our last meeting, let's get on. I think I would be more comfortable approving the draft ordinance with its pitfalls than approving a moratorium, because I think at least as we move toward a code rewrite, that puts some protections in place for wetlands if we want to choose to protect them with an ordinance, which I think we should still be questioning. It takes it for a test drive so that when we go to do the code rewrite, it tells us if we get an application even, you know, that worked, that was problematic. These are, you know, I hope I'm wrong on a lot of my assumptions or, you know, concerns that the ordinance regulating non-jurisdictional wetlands potentially does the opposite of protecting wetlands. I think it potentially leads us down a road where the rich people get to build on wetlands and the poor people don't get to build on wetlands, and we're still building on wetlands. It's a different demographic, to be perfectly blunt about it. But I think if we pause building and development with a moratorium, it's almost less about what that does to the developers. I'm like almost not even concerned. I think they could potentially recover, but really, I am so grateful that our planning staff is here. You guys are awesome. You do an amazing job for us in many communities in our region, but it's sort of a shoestring planning department. And this feels like this feels like something that a really built out planning department might take on. And please do not take this in any offense. You guys do such a good job for us. Like, I really appreciate all the work that you do. And I know you go back to the drawing board and you present really good work over and over and over. But this is still a town of 600 or 700 people with a contracted planning services. And we're asking you to build something out for us that I'm just really concerned about the staff capacity to manage it. I'm worried about the prioritization of this for the next 6 months. I think it's really going to eat into some other priorities that we have as a board. And as much as this is kind of backtracking and I'm walking myself back, and you guys can send me mean emails after this meeting. Yeah, I'd almost rather we approve an emergency ordinance than approve an emergency moratorium. And I don't think we can do that tonight because I don't think we have the draft of this ordinance. We don't have the draft ordinance in this packet and it's not on our agenda to approve, but I just wanted to pitch it as an idea because I think it's a really serious, it's a really serious decision to consider a pause on development in our little vulnerable town. And I think we have a pretty maxed out planning department and staff in a good way. Like, we have lots of important, really good things to work on. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm struggling with this one because for us to approve this, it needs to be unanimous from the 6 of us. So I wanted to be clear about my thinking there.
I think I appreciate the thought that you put into it. And I also didn't come to this decision easily, but just to think our job is to protect health, safety, and welfare. The EPA's website says wetlands and people, and I know EPA is a 4-letter word for a lot of people in town, but it says protecting wetlands protects our safety and welfare. And the reason we would do this emergency ordinance is so, again, and I mentioned this in previous meetings, is if somebody's building on something that, you know, is a wetlands or near wetlands, there was nothing we can do. And I didn't want to be in that position again. So as Clayton said earlier, per section the section where if they already have an application in, then there's nothing we do. So if they get an application in, then that's it. Our hands are tied. We're going to allow that to happen. And I think also if we move it to an ordinance, as you said, we're going to be revisiting this next meeting. And finally, our planning department, I think they do have a lot on their plate, but if I'm not mistaken, we are going to be putting this out to RFP to bring in some other professionals to help designate, figure out what the areas are. So I think the entire onus of this wouldn't be put on them, which I think is important to remember.
Could we still go out for an RFP or RFQ on the wetlands expert without the moratorium?
Yeah.
And that could potentially inform our code rewrite process.
Yep. That's an option.
Yes, kind of piggybacking off of what Tyler said. And actually, earlier when you were talking about during the committee reports, I think it was, we were talking about, we had all these visitors, other town representatives to Silverton, and you used the word refugees. I think it was probably in jest. But I would like to point out that Silverton is a climate refugee area, like basically. We might not be like preparing for that in a literal tactical way yet, but when things are 20, 30 degrees less than they are in the surrounding areas, that is essentially what we become. And going back to the wetlands and groundwater are inherently tied together, and the certain of Silverton is not the only thing that's uncertain. The future of Silverton is not the only thing that's uncertain. That's all.
To me, it feels like we're coming at this just through two different lenses. What I feel like my responsibility as a trustee is to look at kind of the community health, well-being, safety, kind of as Tyler pointed out. Versus the lens of like, if it's good for the economy, then I am for it or against it. And I feel like that should be one component of our decision making, but we shouldn't be looking through the economic lens first, because that's not our job as a trustee. And I think making decisions that are gonna, benefit the community well-being, this feels like it's more in line with that. Rather than just looking at this through purely economic lens.
What about bringing the ordinance back?
I actually don't think I totally understand your train of thought on why that would be better, because I think we had a pretty lengthy discussion about how we didn't want to pass an imperfect ordinance. And the idea with the pause was that would give us time to come up with something that was better.
Totally. I'm just looking at it as like the code is like, it seems so imminent. It seems like this issue, like that our wetlands are going to die or something in the next 6 months. And I just don't feel that imminent urgency. Like, I think if we can incorporate and fold into the code rewrite and receive public comment, this whole process is really rushed. And the emergency, I'm struggling with the emergency ordinance structure of it.
Well, I don't know if I agree with characterizing this as rushed, given how long the topic has been in front of the board. I feel that might be a slightly unfair characterization. Now, if you're just speaking to the verbiage around the emergency ordinance and maybe how that makes people feel, I think I understand where you're coming from, but at the same time, I think I'm going to stand by what I've said earlier, that this does protect the safety and well-being of the people here, not just now, but going into the future.
Okay, I respect that.
How many applicants is this affecting?
We have no applications in for any permits at the moment.
So we don't really know because they wouldn't be here.
That is in the pipe somewhere.
We have someone inquiring about a development,
Inquiring.
correct?
So this wouldn't directly impact that individual. You don't.
I don't know if I.
I'll go as far as this. We've met with him and talked about this.
So putting a mechanism in place that protects the town, protects the property owner, protects the wetlands, protects our future, and also gives us, the trustees and staff, the peace of mind to be able to say, hey, let's pump the brakes. Let's give it a few months. Let's write this. Let's dig into this. Let's find an individual who's qualified that we can all agree on, and really dig into this and find the true opinions that we received from the town. We had a very good discussion last week and over the past 4 months. I don't want to kick the can down the road. That's my personal opinion. I don't think we need to. I think we've exhausted this. And the ordinance and the emergency part, I don't like the word emergency. However, in order to get this mechanism in place to protect ourselves, the town of Silverton, staff, everyone, we need to push this. We need to push this ahead.
But what are we pumping the brakes on? We don't have anything to pump the brakes. There aren't any implications.
We just heard their mind. You don't know. I don't know. But in order to protect our community
And then we're
long
really
term,
kicking the can because we continue to discuss it for the next 6 months. We prioritize it in a work session. We prioritize it in
yeah, but this
our writing
definitely 6 months.
RFQs. We prioritize it in drafting the new policy.
We have a new ordinance being drafted regardless.
Mhm. But we would have it as part of the code
Putting
rewrite.
mechanisms in place to say, hey, these are the guardrails, these are the guidelines.
I know, so it's frustrating. If this wasn't an emergency ordinance, then it could pass with 5-1 vote. Just saying.
I don't think we can take that word emergency out of this.
We can't.
And then we would have to, then it would be first reading.
It's not changing.
Second reading.
We discussed this at our lengthy meeting last time. Well, I just don't believe we need to be. I'm saddened that Shane's not here. I think his input would have been very good. However, we had a great meeting last time. We have a fantastic meeting right now. We need to just, if it needs to be put to a vote, put it to a vote. If it's going to die, it's going to die. But having this constant hanging over our heads, any sort of end in sight.
I totally agree.
And what this does is, once again, it puts got a timeline on it.
Yeah.
So there's an end in sight. Or is light at the end of that we will reach that. And we will be able to
if by some miracle we reach it earlier, we can,
of course,
we can terminate it earlier.
Oh,
right.
But
I think I share Sally's anxiety in regards to a pause. That's been very well known. I think when I come at the perspective of you said, as you said, Jordan, we might be approaching it from different lenses of protecting the health, safety, and well-being of the community. I very much come at a perspective, which is this community is better off when there is responsible land use and development, when there is robust housing for people to live in, housing of all kinds, and when our processes are easy and straightforward, so the people who have smaller pockets can get through the process, as opposed to only the people with the deeper pockets and attorneys can get through our processes. I think we've had very much a no growth code for decades by design or by just default. And I agree with Sally's point that I think it's important to consider the ramifications of what a pause does and also what regulating non-jurisdictional wetlands does in the future. I am only willing to designate so much staff, board and community time and town budget to regulating non-jurisdictional wetlands. But I am in favor of a very time delineated pause because I think it is an acknowledgement of some of the sentiments of our community members. I think it doesn't have the deleterious impact that I would have thought it does as a big M word of moratorium, and we're doing it indefinitely, and it's just gonna crush us and send all of our tradespeople and developers fleeing. So I feel decently comfortable about this time delineated one. I think I'm hopefully not overly optimistic about what we're able to accomplish in the 6 months. And so I think that's sort of the expectation setting that I have with the community is that, this will get us to place where we can know what we're actually talking about. And I guess what I've been thinking in Silverton is that I suspect this is my suspicion, could be totally off base, but my suspicion is that there may be a decent amount of consensus with Silverton residents that the town should regulate non-jurisdictional wetlands to an extent. That big question is, to what extent, right? And so this pause allows us to have that kind of framing discussion around what are we actually talking about? How much are we talking about? And what purpose, utility, meaning does it have? Because there could be a world in which we as a community say, you know what? We have a very finite place to live and have grow domes and have schools and build out preschools and have community centers in this valley floor. And we are going to put all our eggs into protecting all that part of the county around us. And we could have that conversation as a community of what parts of our land here, both town and county, because we're so small and there's not quite the same divisions as there are in bigger places. We could have that conversation that, you know what, there are non-jurisdictional wetlands in Silverton. And we're not going to prioritize them. We're going to work with the county and prioritize everything outside of there because this pocket of developable land is really important and special and priceless. And we need places for those climate refugees to come and sleep and work. And so I guess what I'm saying is I don't mind having a 6 month pause to have that conversation about scope and where we're going. And at the end of it, we still are going to have that prioritization conversation. And my charge to our community members who are very passionate about this is also your time to think about, hey, how do I go find those rich conservationists that want to buy land in Silverton? Right? This is going to be something that we're actually going to have a conversation around priorities, and that involves budgets, and that involves grants, and that involves staff time. And so all that to say, I'm okay with muddling through this for 6 months and having a pause for 6 months because I don't think the effects are as dire as they could be. But also at the end of that 6 months, I think it's time, to Sally's point, for us to continue to work on the other really important issues. There are so many things related to housing policy or environmental policy. There's so many things we could do in this community that have a greater impact on our local environment than protecting some acres of jurisdictional or non-jurisdictional wetlands. There are a lot of other things we could talk about. And so I think it's just important to not get hung up on this issue. While it's important, we also have other really important priorities. So I can go along with a temporary pause, and I want us to just keep moving forward on all the other things that are really important. That was a long-winded way to say that. Doesn't help where we are right now with an emergency ordinance.
I can hear that the board is majority. I'm alone. This is obvious. And I am in this position because this is an emergency ordinance where if I vote against a pause on development, because I really think that it's not the best way to prioritize our time for the next 6 months when we will be prioritizing code rewrite in the coming year, I wouldn't choose to do this right now. And I wouldn't choose to do it with a moratorium. And I would prefer, and I think saving the wetlands with an ordinance is problematic. So at some point down the road, I think Dana did a really good job of explaining that that's just going to be challenging, and that's okay. I think we can rise to that challenge. I think we can find ways to protect valuable wetlands in Silverton. And I think that's important that we do that. I just don't know how we got here. I mean, I know exactly how we got here, but I just wish that we weren't here. And yeah, this would not be my preferred method, but Jim, I am ready for this issue I'm ready to move on from it. I don't want to revisit it at the next meeting. I don't want to have lengthy conversations about it. We've gone around and around and around, and I'm with Patrick Rondinelli. Like, it's time to just make a decision and move on. And that's what we're here to do. So have at it.
Call it. There. All right, I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 2023-10, emergency ordinance, the town of Silverton imposing a temporary action on accepting construction permit application in those areas defined as wetlands within Silverton town limits.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Trustee Edwards,
Yes.
trustee Cranker,
Yes.
trustee Harper,
Yes.
trustee Vierma,
Yes.
trustee George,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Barney.
Okay, while I do not want to vote yes on this, I just don't think it's okay to be in the minority and vote against it and have that sort of influence on the direction that we're going here. And so I also vote yes.
Motion passes 6 yeas, 1 absent.
Okay, thanks for the good discussion. Again, we've really muddled our way through this one and we can all still see each other and wave and say hi, and that's a good thing. Let's move on to item 9C, Kendall Deck and Patio RFP extension.
And I'll take this over real quick. Basically, Todd hasn't received any bids for the Kendall Deck RFP yet, so we have had a few local contractors expressing interest. They picked up some plans last Wednesday, which was the deadline. So we're just asking to extend the deadline until August 8th, which would be the day that we're compiling the board packet for, or the day before compiling the board packet for the next week.
Okay, so there is some hope that we'll see some construction there. That's great.
They're just very busy right now.
Would someone like to make a motion to approve the Kendall Deck and Patio RFP extension?
So moved.
Oh, got it.
So Tyler and Liv. Oh, please.
Trustee Edwards,
Yes.
trustee Cranker,
Yes.
trustee Harper,
Yes.
trustee Vierma.
Yep.
Trustee George,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Barney.
Yes.
Passes 6 yeas, 1 absent.
Okay, thanks. That brings us to item number 10, public comment. Do you have any public comment?
My name's Evan. I respect all of you a lot. That was also one of the most frustrating meetings to be a part of, given what we've heard over the last at least 8 months of we hear you, we want to do things, and then a full 180 from a few board members. So that was it. The feeling from that is very shady, just to be honest. I'm very glad that there is a pause because, and also to the point of saying it as a pause on development, that's not the case. It's a pause on potentially certain developments, potential, a fraction, little bitty, so it's not all development. And it's also the end of July. Not a whole lot of people are thinking about building in winter time. So just wanted to say that, and I'm really glad that you all approved that because that's, as we've been saying, something so that if someone did, albeit bad planning, come to you all with a planning development, it's oh, you're SOL again. So thank you. And I appreciate you all. And sorry for my frustration, but that was pretty frustrating.
Thank you. Have anyone on Zoom? Okay. Seeing no further public comment, we will adjourn the meeting at 9:04. Thanks for hanging in there.